Hi, everyone. My name is Barbara Dillon. I am the editor-in-chief of Fanbase Press. November will see the release of our graphic medicine series, Ripple Effects, which examines life as a superhero with an invisible illness, specifically type 1 diabetes. Given that November is also National Diabetes Month, we are doing our part to raise awareness for and educate others about the disease through interviews just like this one. With me today is Dr. Theresa Rojas, who is the founding director of the Latinx Comic Arts Expo, board member for the Graphic Medicine International Collective, and professor at Modesto Junior College. That is quite a resume. Theresa, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Theresa, as we mentioned, November is National Diabetes Month, when communities throughout the U.S. endeavor to bring greater awareness to diabetes. Why is it important for us to educate others about diabetes?
So I was thinking about this and I was looking up the numbers because I was really curious about, how many other diabetics are there just in the US? And I was reading that there are 37 million of us just in the US. And we see commercials for diabetic products all the time, like the glucose monitors are really big right now. We really don't have much in the way of actual narratives about the challenges of living with the disease. So people think they know, oh yeah, it's the too much sugar in your blood disease. and yes, of course, that's true. That's really just part of it. And it's much more complicated because controlling one's glucose levels is not just about what we eat. I wish it was. But it's really about how the world and our everyday life affects our blood sugar. Things like stress hormones raise blood sugar. Sometimes even exercise does it. That was a huge, just a really big moment for me to realize that sometimes I'll exercise and then I'll check and my blood sugar's actually gone up. And it sounds completely counterintuitive and people don't know that. So I think that by educating others, we can really start to formulate a better understanding, not only of how diabetes works and how we're not monolithic as diabetics, but also how friends and family and communities can help one another.
That's all very well said, Theresa. Now, the focus of National Diabetes Month this year is building your healthcare team. How valuable has your own healthcare team been to your journey with diabetes?
I love this so much because the focus on a team, I think, is so important. It's really important to think of having and cultivating a team of healthcare professionals, which I've done. I'm not always great with them, but there are many of them. The team is really essential to helping I'm going to say helping us meet goals and challenges as diabetics, and even I find generating new strategies and ideas to manage the disease, because they're the ones who are keeping up on the technology and on the options. So we think of our primary healthcare physician as a central. I think that's very true. You have to have someone who is really on your side and who listens. And I have a great primary care health physician, Dr. Parmar, shout out. Diabetics also benefit, I think, from and they need a variety of others as well. So I worked, for example, with an endocrinologist for many years, and I'm looking for a new one right now. For folks who don't know, the endocrinologist is a specialist who focuses on treating conditions related to the hormones, the glands, related tissues, anything that's related to the endocrine system, and diabetes is one of their specialties. So if you're not aware, you should ask for, is there an endocrinologist available, because it's always good to work with that person. And then other practitioners who I work with and who one might want on their team include a diabetic educator, a nutritionist, or a dietitian. And you have to kind of navigate, you have to figure out how to navigate, because sometimes often I should say, you'll get a call or you're checking in and they want to know, what have you been eating and what are your numbers, right? They don't really ask you what's going on in your life. And so I will get the call and I'm like, well, I'm, blah, I'm eating this and that, but let me tell you. And they're like, not my job, not my job. So you have to learn what the different healthcare folks, what their specialties are, and what you can and can't or share or what they will receive, maybe I should say. So some of those folks, as I said, are involved with calling you, but you also want to have access to a podiatrist if possible, because diabetics can have all kinds of foot problems. It's important to know where the urgent care, your nearest urgent care is, your emergency services. You must have an ophthalmologist, so check on the eyes. Diabetics have lots of eye problems, not an optometrist. You need an ophthalmologist because they do things like testing, checking your eyes for diabetic retinopathy, and of course glaucoma and things like that, which some optometry places do, but usually it's a specialist who does that. And then for women, you need a good OBGYN who listens, very important, and is responsive and understands that diabetics have issues related to the female body, like we're prone to yeast infections, for example, and those have to be treated immediately. And then the last part that I want to mention, that it took me a little bit to realize that yes, this person is also, or people are also part of my healthcare team, and those are the mental health care providers. It can be incredibly rough navigating being diabetic, right? And the best possible team is one that is responsive, where there's an easy way to share your records, and where you have that mental health person or people, because you might need different types of mental health care. So as a patient, we also have the right to change our doctors. So if you don't have a good match, if your therapist is just sort of staring at you like, what are you talking about? That happened to me once. I was like, we're not a match, but thank you. Please send me a new referral. You have the right to change, right? You have the right, even if your primary care physician is not responsive, you have the right to change. So I've learned that over the years, and I'm very selective about who I work with so that I'm comfortable, because I want to be able to talk to those folks. And also your dentist is definitely part of that. I'm going through a whole journey right now, so your dentist is part of your healthcare team.
Well, I'm so grateful, Theresa, not only for your willingness to share those recommendations and advisement for other folks who may be on their diabetes journey, but also that over time you've been able to build a steady and reliable team yourself, because as we talked about, that's vital and very important for your health.
For sure.
So in addition, Theresa, to your work at Modesto Junior College as a professor of many different classes, in addition to your work with the Latinx Comic Arts Festival, as I mentioned in your introduction, you also work with Graphic Medicine International Collective, which focuses on graphic medicine. Now, some of our viewers may be unfamiliar with graphic medicine. Can you tell us a little bit about what that genre is and how it might impact readers?
Yeah, graphic medicine is the storytelling intersection of comics and health. So it brings together stories of illness, healthcare, and anything medically related with the comics form. So it's the interaction of the two, and it's not really two, comics and healthcare medically related. So it's more than two, but it includes things like cancer and other illness narratives, stories from doctors and healthcare workers, patient experiences, mental health related narratives, how-to comics, and much, much more. And when I say how-to comics, I mean things like there's an awesome comic called Iggy and the Inhalers, and it's basically a story of how to use an inhaler and the benefits of using an inhaler. And so it's all of that. And the genre, if we can call it that, as some folks argue it's not really a genre, but whatever, it doesn't matter, is that it's an avenue for incredible therapeutic potential in both interacting with the stories and in creating them. and for building knowledge of different experiences of the medical world. So we use comics as the venue for telling all of these stories.
And speaking of that genre, graphic medicine, you were very generous to contribute your own lived experience with diabetes to Ripple Effects. And for those who may be unfamiliar, after each chapter within the Ripple Effects series, we invited an individual with a different invisible illness or invisible disability like diabetes to talk about their experience and to relate it to scenes within the story. So, Theresa, what can you share with us about your experience in sharing that narrative and sharing your journey with readers in this essay?
Yeah, I want to say thanks again to Fanbase Press for asking me to write that. It took me some time to kind of decide what exactly did I want to share, and then I realized what I was writing was going on for its own comic length essay. You know, there was a lot there, and so what I ultimately wrote was an essay called "I Am Not an Orange: A Diabetic Odyssey," and the title didn't make it, but the reference there was about the idea of when you are diagnosed as a diabetic. This happens whether you're type 1 or type 2. Eventually, you'll get to where you have to use insulin. Most of us get there. I've been diabetic for, I think, I want to say 27 years, maybe now, roughly. Um, you have to practice. You know, they give you insulin, and it could be the vial of insulin and the hypodermic needle, or if you're lucky, an insulin pen, which is a game changer. But I started with the vials and the hypodermic needle once the pills weren't as effective. And you have to practice on fruit. And it's very weird because you eventually, you know, initially you're like, well, it's not too bad. I got an orange. That's the standard one. It's supposed to simulate the skin and the idea of the dosage. But that transfer from fruit to yourself, it's very weird. And I wanted to share that. That was something that I remember so vividly in the early days when I first went to insulin, is sort of chasing myself around my home, trying to convince myself to just stop for a second and take this shot. And it was just the first one. I just needed to get through that first one. It barely hurt at all. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It's not like in the movies where you're like, that's not how you give an insulin shot at all. Very gentle. But it was a big deal for me to share this, because it's the first time that I've written about that. And it's the first time that I've written about different kind of funny, weird, crazy things that happen as a diabetic. And it's including things like figuring out that maybe something you have loved to eat for many years, you really shouldn't eat anymore, or you have to give yourself more insulin, or it's carrots can spike your blood sugar, corn can spike your blood sugar, and you're like, but I'm eating vegetables. And that's just how it is. So it's a journey of awareness. But the other thing is, I was so grateful to have a forum to share this, because I know that there are so many other people out there who either have gone through the same thing or will go through the same thing. And I wanted folks to know that it is a weird experience. And part of that is high blood sugar versus low blood sugar. And I mentioned this, that when you get low blood sugar, you can have weird hallucinations, and it can feel like you're having, I don't want to be too dramatic and call it, a psychotic break or anything, but it's weird. And you can get to where you're not sure whether it's a high blood sugar or a low blood sugar. I was on a walk one time, and I just felt like everything was just moving in a slow motion, weird direction. And I thought, I am going to pass out, and I don't know what's going on. And I had nothing with me to check. So I called someone on the phone, and I was like, I need you to basically walk me home and, call somebody if I pass out. And it turned out I had very, very low blood sugar. So but the symptoms can be the same. So I wanted to put that in the essay and really mention it as something that these are things that we navigate. And because it is a hidden illness, because it is a very much an invisible disease for the most part, people don't know that you go through that kind of thing. So I'm very grateful that I was able to share that, and that it's something that's, now in print, and I can share the comic and teach the comic, but then also say, and by the way, check out this essay here that's included in this part of the story.
Well, Theresa, first and foremost, I am so grateful for your generosity and willingness to share your story in Ripple Effects, but also with viewers today, because hopefully we will reach folks that not only are directly impacted by diabetes, but their family members as well, because I think it's so vital to spotlight their experience too, and how they experience supporting someone else who may be going through a journey with diabetes. So thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. And again, thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you and shout out to Jordan Hart for creating Ripple Effects, for writing, and of course the Ripple Effects team and Fanbase Press. It's been an honor to be part of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Theresa. A reminder for our viewers, the printed trade paperback, which collects the entire Ripple Effect series, including Dr. Theresa Rojas's wonderful essay, will be available in print starting on November 15th, 2022. You can currently pre-order it at rippleeffectscomic.com or at fanbasepress.com. But again, Theresa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.